Hey everyone, in today's video I'm going to show you how to build an everlasting raised bed out of a material that doesn't bend or bow like a metal raised bed, and it doesn't rot or decay like a wooden bed, but it's also pretty cost effective. Let's get to it. So today I'm going to show you how to build raised beds out of concrete. Now, this method that I'm going to show you today is transferable to larger and smaller projects on sloping and flat ground. So whatever your situation, you'll be able to build one of these. You can see previous beds that I've built here out of concrete. You can see that it's quite sloping ground. So the idea with this was to have two concrete gravel boards on one side, grading to one this side. So then that creates a terraced effect and helps soil retention and water retention within the beds. It also allows you to fill these deep beds with really rich compost and soil. This is how they come. You've got a slotted area both ends like this, which goes in between the posts. They're nice and thin to help maximise the space inside and outside of your beds, and you can get various different patterns on the face. Now this is 30 centimetres or 1 foot high, and you can get half that size, so a 15 centimetre one if you wanted smaller beds. Now they're 1.83 centimetres long or 6 foot, and they're originally used for fencing as a gravel board to prevent soil from passing from one side to the other on boundary lines. But because they've been made in a factory, it's a really strong concrete mix, and they're reinforced along here with metal rods to prevent cracking and to increase the strength. So depending on how big your bed is, you'll need X amount of these, and you'll need some corner posts and potentially some middle posts, depending once again how big your bed's going to be. Now these posts come at 2.4 meters long, which I usually cut up into 60 centimeter posts. So I end up with 4 posts per post I buy, as a foot of it will be out of the ground supporting one of them, and the other foot will be in the ground concreted in. So to get started, you need to work out the size of the bed you're going to be building and the space that it's going to be going in. What I'm going to do is a continuation of these sleeper beds that I've done here, and I'm going to be replacing this bed that had a rotten sleepers before. To set up, I first want to get the string lines up so that I know I'm going to be putting the concrete posts in the right place. So this string line is in line with the beds along there, and then this string line is 80 centimetres away from the previous bed. So we've got an 80 centimetre width on the pathway, which ties in with the other beds down there. And as you can see, all of these plants are going to need to be removed so they don't interfere with the string line, and that's going to be the line of the post. So we're going to need a good 4 inches clearance along there. So I've completed the dig out here. I've removed the plants that were interfering with the string line, and then taken the soil back here to the same height as the bottom of this gravel board, so that the pathway is going to be level. I've also been dictated on the height here by where this blackberry is planted, as if I did the gravel board at the same height as this one on the right here, the end height would be here, which is actually a little bit too low coming across to the blackberry, and really I'd like to put some good soil into there. Whereas if I did 2 of these gravel boards that would take it to 60 centimetres high, then that's going to be far too high and swamp the blackberry. So I've met in the middle at 45 centimetres, which is going to be 1.5 of these gravel boards. Then that enables us to put some good soil into here, and it doesn't disturb the blackberry. Now the string lines are all set up and we're ready to get the first post in. This string line here represents the top of the posts along this line. So if I measure down, it's about 48 centimetres. So I'm going to need to dig 30 centimetres below that. That's a really good rough guide on how deep you want your hole to be. However, if you are going to do a taller raised sleeper bed, then I'll recommend going 40-45 centimetres deep, depending on the height and the ground conditions. If you have very soft soil, then do go a bit deeper. But as you can see here, there's a huge amount of rocks, which as I concrete the post in, will all bind together. So you know, as you're digging, that your soil height was roughly 48 centimeters here. So you can measure from the top of here, and when you hit 78 centimeters to the bottom, you know you've done the 30 centimeter hole. A good guide to know where your hole's going to be is to put a spirit level in line with the string line, and when that bubble hits the center, you know that you need to dig around that area there. As I know that seems a bit silly, however it can be quite deceptive when you're stood above the string line hammering away with a spade, that you can sometimes go away from where the center of the hole needs to be. So it's always good to refer to that and use the spirit level. So I've cut the post the right height by measuring from the string line to the bottom of the post hole. The post is in deep enough, and I've leveled it this way and this way, so it's level upright both directions. And with that being in the middle, if you look over that, it's perfectly in line with that side and perfectly in line with that side. And the top of the post is exactly touching that string line, and there's a bit of wobble from the string line afterwards, so that means that it's not pushing on it, because if the post was leaning this way, there wouldn't be much of a bounce back. Do you see the difference? There's a bounce back there, no bounce back. So I know that post is exactly where I want it, because when I put a gravel board going that way, it will be in line, and a gravel board that way will be in line as well. So now I'm ready to concrete the hole. So for this I'm just using fast set postcrete. This works absolutely fine. However, if you do want a stronger mix because your soil is quite soft, then you can mix up your own concrete in a wheelbarrow and pour it in. Right, so I've just put a little bit of water in at the base to start with. You may have noticed when I was putting the post in, I've just put some rocks in here just to support that post, so I know it stays level as I pour the concrete in and mix. You can put your spade, if you don't have rocks, you can put your spade at an angle or fork to just wedge it in place there. Once you've got enough postcrete in there and water, then it's always good to just get a road pin or a bit of batten or a stick just to mix that around, get any air pockets out as well. Just want to make sure that when you're doing this, just go back over and check that you haven't moved the post with the spirit level, and also that it's not away from the string lines. So now that the first post is in, I'm going to follow this level string line to find out where my next post is going to be. This spirit level's 6 foot, which is the same size as the gravel boards. So I'm going to slot it in the gap here to find out where my next post is going to be. You can equally just use a tape measure and measure the distance across there. But if you've got something like this, it also helps you know if you need to cut away any more of the bank. So my next hole is going to be here. Something worth remembering is whether your post is going to be on the outside or the inside of the string line. In this scenario, it's going to be on the inside. So I'll need to cut a little bit away of that bank to be able to get the post in. Fortunately, the centre posts in between the corner posts are thinner. The corner posts are a lot thicker, so I won't need to dig as big a hole. If your post isn't level, there's a little trick you can do with a spade to just push the bottom of it, which brings then the top round to straighten it up. Rather than pulling the post out or trying to waggle it with your hands, it's easier to use your spade as leverage. And by having this, it stops me pushing the post too far one way or the other, and it saves constantly measuring. So just having this in place makes it a lot easier. So I'm happy with that way. This way's obviously got to go to the string line, and it's not touching the string line, so I'm going to need to raise that a tiny bit. So what you can just do is get a bit of soil or sand, something loose that crumbles underneath it. You see that just brought it up. So once again, you put your spade in there just to push the bottom further back in the hole. And it's quite good, you can make very incremental movements with the spade. So that post is exactly where I want it now. It's just touching the string line but not rubbing against it. It's level this way and it's level this way, the same height as the string line and in line with the string line, not twisted. Then I'm happy to postcrete in. And also this gap is the right distance to slot a gravel board in. Now you want to make sure that the postcrete gets completely around the post. To mix it and push the postcrete. Just going to plonk some stones in there. And you can see the post is wobbling a little bit. I'll just pop my spade up against that. So I'm just going to push this around the back of the post around here, as that's usually bits that get missed. Obviously you want most of the strength at the face because the soil is going to be behind it. But it's always good just to firm that in everywhere. As this is really rocky ground anyway, I've got a lot of rocks that I can use just to bulk up this post mix. And the ground here is extremely solid with all of the rocks below it, so it all binds together. Make sure that the levels are still okay. So that's touching there. This is level this way. That's still touching the string line, and it's level that way. I could fill this hole up to the soil level here with concrete, but I know how strong this ground is with all these rocks, that is all I'm going to need in there. If you have softer soil, you can dig your hole deeper and wider and put more concrete in. So now that post is in and semi-set, so I'm able to work around it and not worry about it becoming off-centre. So I've cut half a gravel board here, as that's what's going to fit best, and I can also use the other half on the other side, so there's no wastage there. I've put this one in so I know that my post is going to be here, and made sure that it's level and 30 centimetres away from the top of the post and the string line at both ends, so I know I can put a full width gravel board on top. Now, just something to note is that here is going to be where your post is, but actually the hole's not going to start there, because you've got to remember the slotted area of the post, which would come to about here, and then you need to allow a space for the concrete to go in. So you're going to actually start digging your hole roughly around there, and especially as it is a corner post, they're a lot wider. So the hole you're going to be digging is going to be like that. As you can see on this one, the slotted area goes over there, and then you're probably going to want to have about that much concrete. So the hole is probably about that big that I've dug there. Not only do you want the gravel board level, but an equal distance away from this string line, so there's enough room for this post. So I've dug this hole, got the corner post cut and positioned in where it's level on the face, the side, touching and in line with the string line. And also this is level as well, and 30 centimeters away from the tops of the posts and the string line. So I'm ready to postcrete this one in. Now what you can do when you're leveling your gravel boards is using a rubber mallet to gently tap either end or the center just to compact it. If you make a light dusting of sand or soil there, then you can sit that in there and tamp along to get it level. If you use a metal mallet or a hammer of some sort, then you're just going to crack the concrete. So you want to get yourself a rubber mallet. Now this one is also cut to size and ready to go in. I'm going to leave it out for the time being because I want enough space to get behind here to get some concrete in there as well. Something worth mentioning as well is this technique can be used over on the larger ones as well. You can actually just sit your concrete boards in, then put the other post on top, just like I've done here, rather than lifting them over and slotting them in if you find them quite heavy. However, you really must make sure that these are level, as if this was at an angle like that, that's going to throw this post's angle off, and then the next one that slots in, it won't be a nice fit. So yeah, just quite key to make sure that's level. Now you can see I've moved the post a little bit, so just wiggle that back to the string line and then use the tamper just to compact some of the concrete and rocks there. Now just make sure the bottom of your spirit level is clean, as sometimes when you're doing a job like this it can get muddy and that can throw off the level. Same with working on this side. You've got to find a point where you haven't got all these knobbly bits where the concrete's set. Sometimes it's easier to go off a flatter side like here, and that's great. And now I'm just going to wait for that to set before I put the other gravel board on top. So I'm going to come away from this area so I don't knock that post and start work on the post off this one. Then from there I can set up my string line along the top. So I've dug this area out and positioned one of the smaller gravel boards here. Now I've got a level across here, packed some bricks to make sure that that's level. I could have used a 30 centimetre gravel board, the deeper one there, but I thought it would be a bit of a waste because the grass is going to come up to here, so these bricks will be hidden anyway. Now when I was digging this hole, I levelled this off first, and then from the top here I measured down to know what size my post would need to be cut at, as if this is level, then that's effectively like this string line that was along the top here, because I know this one is at the same consistent height. So taking a line across here, if that is in line with that, it's going to be the same height. Another way to check, if you didn't use a gravel board and we're just putting the posts in on their own, then you can just get a spirit level, and then when that's level you can measure from the bottom of the spirit level to know what height your post needs to be cut at. And also this is a good way to double check everything to make sure the top of the posts are level. So I'm happy with the level there. It's in line with this string line, so it's straight with the string line. The post isn't twisted in any way, so I know That slot is going to fit a gravel board in a straight line, so this will run parallel and the bed will be the same size internally. As this post is a lot lower because of the ground level, I can just use my spirit level there just to make sure it is touching that string line. So you're using the spirit level as an extension of the post. So the way I made sure that that was in line with the string line is just standing away and look down that string line, and I can see all those posts are in a line. So I'm happy to postcrete that one in now. Someone else is interested. And that's that post in. Remember, before you walk away from the post, make sure that it's level on both faces and is in line with the string line, and the top is the same height as your gravel board. Then you know that your post is in the right position. So these posts are now solid in the ground, and I can do the exciting bit of putting the gravel boards on there. I've measured down here, and as I've said before, I'm doing a 30 centimetre gravel board and a 15 centimetre gravel board. So that's going to be 45 centimetres. So from here to the bottom there is 45, and I've checked the other end. So I'm good to position the gravel board. Now these are heavy, so certainly if you're able to, get someone to give you a hand. So I've just dug over this area here and cut out the rectangle where the other concrete gravel boards are going to go. Also replace the turf from the dig out here with the turf dug up from this area here. So my next job would be to get the next post in, which can be the middle one or the corner. You can see it's starting to take shape. Something worth mentioning when you cut a gravel board in half is you need to create another slot on the other end. As if you have this rock face design, it's too thick to go in the slot, so you have to create one by notching out this section where you come in with the disc cutter from the side and the top to cut out this section here so it slots in to the post. So we've just got the last post to put in now, which is an easy one to work out. As if you've got your 6 foot level, it's going to go there. or half of one, so 3 foot measure to there, and that's going to be where the post is. Also, it's going to be in line with this one down here. So once this is in, all the other bits can be slotted in. So the post is in and those two boards are nice and level. I've just packed some soil underneath them just to bring their level up so they meet the top of the posts. And I've just put this one in. I had to cut out a bit of a wedge here as it needs to be 30 centimetres this side and about 20 there, so it tapers up to the smaller gravel board over there. So that's the build finished. Just got to fill it with soil. So I've left the soil a little bit lower than the top of the gravel board height, and that's to allow for a good mulch in the autumn. And that's it, one solid raised bed. Now, this bed may take a little bit longer to build initially than other raised bed material options. However, it's going to save you time in the long run, as this bed won't rot, bend or break, and it will certainly outlast a lifetime. That's it for this video. Hope you found it useful and entertaining. If you did, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. Anyone who does so really does help the channel grow, and it's much appreciated. Do let me know in the comments your thoughts on this project, or if you've done a similar sort of project at home. I'd love to hear about it. And I'll catch you on the next one. Cheers.